They say that the masculine man is the angry man. No.
Hello again, Shireen.
Hello, we are back.
We are back. We are like...
Yeah, do you feel lighter?
Better. I feel lighter for some reason.
I think just saying it and acknowledging it helps a lot.
Yeah, I think just putting it out there and then having an expert validate it and sort of provide like the reasonings and the link of why you're feeling that way and stuff. It's very, very valuable.
And knowing what to do.
Yeah, that's the most important part.
Yeah.
So, now moving on to the next question, which is honestly I'm very curious about, and I would love to see what's your take on it, is from your practice, what are some typical examples or manifestations of generational trauma that you've encountered, particularly in Malaysia?
Right, great question. So I'd say a big one would be to do with gender. In the sense of, we normally find that with women, right? Women are sort of thought in a way that they can feel all emotions, but not anger. And men, the opposite, you know? You're allowed to feel anger, but don't show any of the other emotions. So this somehow can get passed on through generations if it's not addressed.
Oh, wow. How did that even come about? Like, I know I'm just wondering, how did that even come about?
If I look back at older generations, right, there's just so much of women being able to show, sadness or happiness, but if they were to show anger, there would always be this thing of, do not show me that. So they're shamed for showing anger. And then with men, and a lot of times even now, we hear this aspect of, oh, but it's normal. You know, men will sometimes be like that because that's what they would have witnessed in their families. And so if that's not addressed as, oh, I can see how that would have been unhealthy, then that will get passed on.
Yeah, and like, you know, sometimes it's often linked, I would think, to like masculinity as well, you know, or like being feminine, you know.
Traits. Is it something to do with how society expects women to act a certain way?
Correct.
And how male are supposed to act a certain way? And why anger specifically? Like,
it's switch, right?
Like, why anger specifically for male? Like, are males seen as weak if they were to be sad according to society?
Like, men don't cry, that's why,
That's normally what we see, right? That if a man is more in tune with their emotions, they get certain labels thrown at them. And when we talk about this aspect of like masculinity, actually society has it wrong. They say that the masculine man is the angry man. No, that is just toxic. That is trauma that's coming out. And so even when we say this term of, oh, toxic masculinity, no, because the healthy masculine is not that. So when you are saying that, oh, he's masculine, that is why he's showing that, it is actually something that's very misunderstood within society. I'd say that the healthiest form of a masculine presence is one that is in tune with their emotions and feels secured enough to express their emotions.
How about women?
Very similar when it comes to women, because a lot of times women are very disconnected from their emotions. When I say disconnected, they might see it as, oh, it's weak. You know, if I have sadness, I'm perceived as being weak. I'm not saying sit down and cry all day, but do not block the tears, because as soon as you do that, you are blocking off that feminine essence. So at the end of the day, anything that we do, we need balance. You know, even in terms of like feminine energy, masculine energy, we want to find the balance in both.
How do this sort of like, I would say like suppressing, like males are expected to suppress certain emotions, females are expected to suppress certain emotions to act the way how society perceives them to be, right? How does this materialize as generational trauma, like for males specifically and for female?
If men are not in tune with their emotions and now they become a parent, what are they going to teach that child? Okay. Don't show any emotions. So that's going to get passed on, where essentially, let's say the female child is going to learn, oh, this is normal. You know, like dad never showed any emotion, so it's perfectly normal if now I found a partner who also does the same. That's how it gets passed on, because you're just recreating what you're familiar with. If you're familiar with trauma, you are going to recreate trauma. And very similar when it comes to women. If they grew up in a household where they only saw mom being quiet, and when I say being quiet, I mean she wasn't allowed to express anger, or she expressed anger in a very explosive manner. So what is this child going to do when they become an adult? Perhaps they bottle everything up, and then there will be moments where it's explosive, maybe like throwing a cup or something like that. That becomes a cycle of its own, because again, when they have kids, the kids are going to see that. They're going to think that's normal, and everything gets recreated.
It's like a circle.
It's a cycle, essentially. Yes, what we see, we are familiar with it. Even if what we see is not healthy, we are familiar with it. We are drawn to it somehow. So when we do not become aware of what we went through, if it was unhealthy, we are going to recreate it. If we can pause and say, wait a second, I can see how that was unhealthy, and I'm going to choose to do it differently. That's how we break the cycle.
Wow. So how easy is it to break the cycle?
Okay. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's tough. And why do I say it's tough? Anything that requires change, right? Even us just learning to add one new thing into our routine, it is tough. It takes a bit of mental work. Now, imagine if I'm saying, we are going to look at your childhood. We are going to dissect it. We're going to look at your parents, your family members, you yourself. We're going to figure out how patterns came about, and maybe how do you contribute to it. So this is a lot of analyzing, a lot of self-reflection as well. And that might be tough for people, especially sometimes to go, oh, I can see how currently I might be the toxic one. I might be the one that is putting out more trauma because that's what I'm used to. And here's my partner trying to highlight to me a different way. And I'm just feeling so distressed by it that I lash out. That takes a lot of work, a lot of reflection. So is it easy? No. Is it worth it? Yes. Because when we do the work, we break the generational trauma, and then we will pass on something better to our next generation.
So what is essentially the first step to this?
First step, I'd say, ask yourself, why do you act the way you act? Why do you think the way you think? So, for instance, how do you act when you're sad? How do you act when you're angry? Look at your choices in partners. You know, look at the last 2 or 3 people that you've been with. Look at your current partner. Really start to look at the patterns. And then check with yourself, does any of this remind you of mom or dad? So we hear so many times, right? People going, oh my gosh, I woke up one day and I realized I'm just like my mom or my dad. That is because you have looked at what you saw with them and you've mimicked it. It's just become a part of you. So if that wasn't healthy, let's say if you grew up always hearing, let's say mom, right? Saying, don't talk about XYZ. And now you do that too, or you feel a lot of shame when you're talking about something, you have to pause and go, why does that make me feel so much of resistance? And when we have that awareness, now we can do the next step. Next step, inner child healing, reparenting. We connect back with that younger version of ourselves, and we're going to fill the void, meaning we're going to address what we never got. It could be certain words, it could be certain actions, and we're going to start doing that with our present versions.
So, on the question on the topic of patterns, right? I have a very curious question. Why do we gravitate towards pattern? Like, personally, why do we feel, at least for me, familiarity equals safety. Feels safe.
It's that. It is that exactly. Because when something is familiar, we feel safe with it. And so why do we choose something that is the same? Because somehow we go, oh, I think this is right for me because I feel safe with XYZ.
Even though it's trauma.
And this is the perfect example, right? Someone who grew up in a very chaotic household, they're used to chaos. Their nervous system is used to chaos. So when they meet someone who is calm, who is peaceful, they don't know what to do with this calmness and this peace. So they say, no, this person isn't the right person for me because it's boring. They have attached passion with chaos. So it's not passion, it's chaos. And you just don't know what to do with a healthy relationship. So what do they recreate? They end up choosing the partner who is chaotic, who gives them mixed signals, who basically makes their nervous system feel the same way it felt in childhood. And then they go, well, this is familiar. This is love because this is exactly what I went through, not knowing that this is the trauma that they are recreating.
Why do we find some sort of safety in that? Like, I'm very curious.
It's just what you're used to. Okay, for example, if you always go to Mamak store ABC, you just know what to expect, right? But now when you have to go to a different Mamak store, and this is just a Mamak store I'm talking about, yeah? When you just have to go to a different one, it's a bit of, what am I going to get here? You're uncertain. So a lot of times as humans, we place uncertainty with feeling unsafe. That's why we stick to our comfort zone. Comfort zone is what is familiar.
Okay.
Very, very interesting. Okay. The next question, like in terms of healing, right, from this, how crucial is open communication between different generations? So we spoke about a lot about how, like sorry is like one way, or there's this disconnect between the understanding of mental health between the older generation and the current generation.
Or even using words.
Yeah, even specific words, expressions and whatnot. So how crucial is open communication between the older generation and...
We do need to have that communication, but at the same time, you cannot expect someone else to change. Meaning, when we talk about doing the healing work to break out of this cycle of generational trauma, it really has to start from you. You are doing the work. You are recognizing, oh, ABC made me feel XYZ. And then you're saying, so I'm going to do it differently. If you say, I need everyone else around me to change as well, that doesn't work because we can't control other people. We can communicate with them, we can set the boundaries, but just remember, it comes back to us choosing to do it differently.
So we cannot force people. On another question of like, if somebody doesn't want to communicate, for example, the older generation, they're very staunch in their views.
Yeah.
How do we is it like an inevitable fact that we cannot make them listen if they don't want to listen?
How can you make anyone do something that they don't want to do? They could sit there, they could listen to you for 1 hour, and then they can just leave and say, I'm just going to do what I want to do. So we can't force them to get it. People can only heal according to what they can hold space for. So if they cannot, at their age or their capacity to absorb this new information, you just need to ask yourself, why is it so important to you that they get it? Because it feels more like you want the validation then from them. And if you're seeking for that validation from them, you're still outsourcing your healing journey to someone else.
Right.
Can one ever be too old to start their journey of healing?
We can heal at any age. It's sort of like learning. At any age, we can always learn something new. So I wouldn't say that we hit a block at an age. It's just how open are we to absorbing new information and implementing it.
Is there like a certain pattern? For example, like for Yasanthi, I think our exposure to social media helped us to, be more aware of generational trauma. But how about the older generation? I mean, I'm not saying that they're not on social media. They are definitely, we know. But then, is it like the same pattern, or what would maybe perhaps help them realize things better? Would it be conversation with their friends perhaps, or
it could be a conversation, something as easy as saying, hey, I read this article, what do you think about it? At the same time, you have to understand, for them it might feel like an attack, like, oh yeah, kids, they always blame the parents. So it's different. For us, it's recognizing what was done and saying, let me do it differently.
Correct.
For them, it's basically then having to acknowledge, oh, all those things that I did, they were unhealthy. Do you see how that has an added weight to it?
Yeah.
So with them, I can also understand why maybe they're not going to want to go down that path, because it's a lot more of work.
Yeah.
So again, we don't want to focus on other people. I would really encourage, ask yourself, what can I do for my own journey? Because when we try to get someone else to get something, it's either they're open to it or they're not. If they're not, we're going to feel very overwhelmed.
Okay, so like for us ourselves, what can we do, or like how can we get started in this healing journey and process?
First thing, you need to bring your awareness to who you are, why you operate the way that you operate. So it comes to like, okay, how do I deal with my emotions? How do I deal with criticism? So all of those things, just understanding, why am I the way that I am? You're going to realize it's just programming that was passed on by parents and society. And then that's where you're going, okay, let me learn a new program. Let me learn how to do things differently. So it just could be, let's say, communicating. Some people are very aggressive when they communicate. Some people are passive aggressive. It's like they're saying it, but they're not saying it. You know, a lot of mixed signals happening. So even that, for someone to go, why do I do that? And when you bring your awareness to how you are acting, then only you can change. So 2 parts, right? One is understand how you're operating. Second, implement the new skills.
And how do we know if it's working or not?
I'd say when someone tells you, wow, you're so different now. Just something as simple as that. It could be that validation from someone else, or on your own, to reflect, to ask yourself, in the past, when this situation happened, how did I react? So maybe you remember, last time someone gave me some feedback and I just yelled at them and I walked out the room. And then this time someone gave you some feedback and you said, that's interesting, I want to know more. Tell me more about it. So if you just compare your own journey, and if you can say, hey, this is the same thing, but I'm doing it differently, that in itself is change.
Okay.
Say we get started on our health journey, right? Where essentially what we're doing is we're putting ourselves first. Right? Which we're not used to. Like, say, okay, I'm going to start on my healing journey, like right at this moment. And from now on, I'm putting myself forward. And with that comes a lot of like not tolerating things that push my boundaries or things that make me uncomfortable and whatnot, right? Would the act of putting myself first and not accepting this kind of things, would it be counted as selfish?
That's a very interesting word, right? Selfish.
Yeah.
Okay. I want you guys to think about this word. When someone says that you're selfish, what they really mean is, how dare you choose what you want to choose and not do what I wanted you to do? That's how they mean it. So, if that's how the word is being used, aren't they selfish? They want what they want. They don't want you to have what you want. So it's all about perspective. It's how that word's being used. I understand if we've just got 1 cup of water and we're all thirsty. If I then said, sorry, I'm not thirsty, but you can't have any of my water. Yeah, in that context, super selfish, could have shared. But let's say if I need all that water for me. How is that selfish? I need to take care of myself first before I think about anyone else. And that's what they say on the plane, right? If the oxygen mask drops down, put it on yourself first. Don't put it on the elderly people that you're traveling with or the children that you're traveling with. How come no one's telling them that they're being selfish? Because logically, it's save yourself first and then you can help others. So you cannot self-sacrifice saying, oh, but then people will think I'm being selfish. No, you need to learn how to keep yourself healthy and safe first, and then you can help others if you want to.
But it's the challenge, right? Like how, because the chances of encountering these incidences, like, people, or at least in one way or another, people are calling you selfish for taking care of yourself. How do you manage that, like the thoughts that will come to your mind? Because especially when you're just starting off in this journey, it's going to come back at you for sure. Right. So how do you tell yourself
internal monologues?
Yeah, correct. I'm not selfish. It's actually okay.
Like, it's okay. I think that's the thing. How do you tell yourself it's okay?
It's a lot of consistent internal dialogue, basically saying it's not selfish, it is self-love. I have to take care of myself. This is healthy. So it's a lot of rephrasing it. A lot of times, again, people are going to tell you that you're selfish for doing something that's healthy because they were taught self-sacrifice. And now when you're saying, no, I will not self-sacrifice, I will put myself first, that doesn't go hand in hand with their coding. They're going to get very triggered. So instead of them dealing with their trigger, they're going to say you're selfish because you see, you're just doing something, putting yourself first, and they're not doing it. So basically they're saying, how dare you act like this because I never got to act like this.
And is there a way to shut them up?
I think that's a very interesting, that's a good question, because what comes to my mind is like in Asian families, our parents literally go all out. Right?
Yeah, right. Because they
Our
think they have
parents-
the right to.
Yeah, our parents literally go all out when they're raising us at the expense of their mental health,
Yeah.
at the expense
Correct.
of their energy, at the expense of their money, whatever, right?
Yes.
For raising us. Their intention was good, right? But somehow later as you grow up, right, they expect you to return the same energy to them.
So, what's really interesting is, and we always have to remember the direction, right? When it comes to like parents and children, it's actually one way, meaning parents have to give their children unconditional love.
Yep.
If you as a parent say, well, I fed you and I provided you shelter and I gave you education, guess what? Hard truth, guys, that's literally your job as a parent.
Yeah.
If you didn't do all of that, it's neglect. But as children, see, it doesn't go back. You're not required. There's no condition that says now you need to do all of that back.
Yeah.
And when parents pull that card, I did this, I did that, it's then coming from a place of my love for you is conditional. I did all of these things with an expectation that you would act a certain way. So we always have to remember, if we are being exposed to that kind of a conversation, it's probably maybe the parent feeling frustrated.
Yeah.
Maybe feeling like, hey, I expect something from you.
Like I did
and-
all of this for you, and look at you,
Yes.
what you're doing now, that kind
Yeah.
of. And I feel like it's a very common pattern, because when I
Yeah.
speak to my friends, not all, but like a few of them have had similar experiences with our parents who went all out, raising the kids up.
Yeah.
But now when they actually want to put themselves forward, right? Like for example, I want to spend this X amount of money on myself,
Right.
and the parents would be like, why are you not spending it on us? Or things like, when I was raising you, I didn't even think of this for myself, but you were thinking of spending this particular money on yourself. So like there's also this
Right.
sort of like guilt, like I did all of this for you, and
Yeah, naturally, as a child, I mean, you love your parents and you will feel guilty because you feel like you're not paying back for whatever they did,
Yeah.
or
So-
you're not giving them enough.
like, is this expectation normal? Like, because it's all like normalized.
Right. But then the thing with that is, right, then the child's going to grow up feeling like they owe someone, their parents, something for their existence. And they didn't ask to be brought into this world. As parents, when you choose to bring a child or children into this world, you also need to take on that responsibility that they are going to have their own needs, and your expectations might not be what is the reality, and you as a parent have to cope with that. But a lot of times parents are not dealing with maybe the disappointment of, oh, I expected XYZ from you and I'm not getting that. So what do? Then they say to the child, when I da 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 da. So then the guilt comes up. Again, it's a one-way street. As a parent, you are expected to do that. That's your job. But you cannot put that expectation on the child.
So how can we respectfully tell them that? So say if somebody experiences this, right?
Yes.
You can't go to your mom or your dad and go, it's your job, hello.
Actually, this is something that I have personally had a conversation with
Okay.
my mom. I said, look, don't expect this. Like, I'm your child. You literally, your job as a parent is to do. Initially, when we were at the beginning of our friction, right?
Yes.
Then she's like, how can you talk to me like that?
But it's the truth.
Yeah.
It actually is the truth, because a lot of times I do hear the children saying, oh, then my mom said, I gave you shelter and I cooked for you, I cleaned for you, I took you to school. Okay, you just did your job as a mom.
Yeah.
That is literally your job. I mean, my boss is not giving me any golden star for showing up to work, because that is my job. So when they highlight that, there is a sense of I expect something from you.
Yeah.
But again, when you choose to be a parent, you also must understand that this child doesn't owe you anything. And I think if a parent is going, what do you mean the child doesn't owe me anything? Then you got to sit with that, because you see how there's already that expectation. Like, no, you owe me something. No, they don't. Because we cannot say that we expect another human being to be in debt to us.
Yeah, correct. And I think it's got to do with culture as well, you know, like okay, I don't speak the Chinese language, but my husband used to tell me that there's a phrase in the Chinese language, like, you know, if somebody were to do something to help you, you will have to pay back. You know, something along those lines. So I'm just wondering if it has some like cultural context as well, or, you know,
that we are raised sometimes in that way, for sure. And that's why it's so important to pause and ask, where did I learn this from? Okay, like if someone helped me, why am I then feeling now I must help them too? Because there's a difference with being able to receive. That means I feel worthy to receive help, and full stop. Versus, oh, because you helped me today, now I feel I must help you. It's not a sense then of feeling that we can just receive. We always feel that if I receive, now there's a condition.
It's like almost an obligation.
correct.
Yes,
Correct.
an
So that's-
obligation. So you see, it's a very different focus then on why you are doing something. Are you doing it because you want to? Because you genuinely want to show up, you genuinely want to help someone? Or are you doing it because if you don't, then you feel guilty?
Yeah, you're right. Okay.
After this session, I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna just stare at the wall and reflect a lot. Honestly, it's a lot of insightful things that you have shared today, Shireen, that is very thought-provoking, and I believe our viewers, when they watch it, those who want to embark on, you know,
working on
healing,
themselves and healing
their inner child, working on themselves, would find a lot of things validating. I believe, like some of the struggles that I've been feeling. It's just minute examples. I believe there's a lot more examples out there that people are experiencing, and whatever that you've said, I hope would be validating for them.
Yeah, and especially for parents as well, you know, like you know, for me to see, like, you know, it all starts at the childhood stage, you know, as being a child. That's the most crucial stage, you know. So, and it's very interesting, honestly, because as a parent, a new parent especially, you're also figuring out yourself. So, you know, having to do that and knowing that it's such a tender stage in their life, that's gonna set the precedence for, you know,
the rest of their life.
the rest of their lives.
Yeah, when Shireen said it can shape relationship patterns, and I'm like, that's actually the effect of it is like, it just follows you throughout life. Every decision you make is impacted by it.
That's why it's generational trauma.
You're right. Wow. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me here. This was such a great topic, and I really hope that the viewers get something from this and start on their own cycle breaker journey.
I believe they will. I honestly believe they will.
Me too.
Did you learn something today?
Oh, definitely.
A lot, right?
Lots of it. I feel like, you know, I have to look back at the clips, replay it, you know, and to really...
And thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you.
For sharing and for your time and for talking about this heavy topic.
Yes. It didn't really feel heavy at the end of the day.
No, for me it was heavy because I had to... Like,
initially.
because I wanted to be really raw and candid and honest when this kind of topic, because it's a topic that hits home, right?
Yeah.
And I believe it's a topic that hits home for a lot of people out there.
Correct.
So I can only do it justice by being honest. Some of which I might need to edit out later.
Yeah. But
Mom, don't hate me, okay? It's just an example. But my mom's absolutely brilliant right now, and she's also doing her work to become better. And I'm doing my work to become
She's
better.
amazing.
And I believe you're doing your work to become better parent.
I am trying.
As well as Shireen as well doing her work to become a better individual. And with that, we will do our work and signing off.
Okay, bye guys. That's it. No sembang tak kosong for today.
Bye bye.